welcome to the third review of the evening. Up this time is Abyss. Explore the Abyss. Earth 3024. Next Sunday AD. Natural resources are scarce, and the survival of the human race is in danger. Desperate to find new energy sources, the ASAN, ASAN, no idea what that stands for, creates a biomechanical robot called Neptuno that is capable of withstanding extreme depths in the hopes of finding new energy sources. After many years of exploration, a new energy source is found, codenamed Gaia. Your mission will be to find Gaia energy stones by exploring the depths. To do so, you must control Neptuno by counteracting gravity and the surrounding darkness with the aid of a light that will go out little by little. Right, so Abyss is a curious game with a curious release pattern. You see, it recently released on Steam, but it's actually very old. It's a game that's been floating around the Nintendo ecosystem for a decade plus.
Really? The only other release that I found when I was looking around was PlayStation 2 years ago.
I can tell you it's been released on the Wii U eShop, the 3DS eShop, and as far back as the DSiWare.
Dead platform.
Okay, now I'm finding it.
So, like I said, this game's made the rounds, but really only if you were I'd say, really into the Nintendo ecosystem.
I guess if it was literally DSiWare, then I can go a little bit easier on it.
Right.
One or two of the things that bugged me, but
yeah. And from what I've seen of the let's say the touchscreen versions, they use the touchscreen a lot more. That's definitely not the case in this port. But for the details, we go to the Gauntlets.
So Adam referred to this game when he mentioned it to me as being like Lunar Lander but underwater, and that's kind of accurate. You control this weird little, whatever they called it. None of the lore information is in the game at all.
Neptune.
Or any of the immediately available meta information. Which you have two major controls, which are tilt left and left or right, or rather clockwise or counterclockwise, I think. I didn't try flipping all the way around at once and see if it worked. I think it did. And thrust, which is always directly opposite, or you're thrusting toward the light dealy bopper you have. And you have to make it through mazes in the dark to collect 6 Gaia, whatever that is, and then get to the exit. There's stuff you have to dodge. There are, as far as I could tell, there's a mission mode, which I think might only have 12 stages. There is a dark mission mode, which I didn't get to, but it looks like it's harder. There is a 2-player mode, which I didn't have anyone to play with. And then there's a 4th mode, which I couldn't even tell what it was. I think you have to beat dark mission mode to see it. I only got about halfway through regular mission mode because of some issues I had with it. Things this game does not have. Any way in-game to see what the controls are. Any method to control the volume of the relative things in the game, which is notable because this is another game that it's mostly like very echoey, atmospheric to creepy, underwaterish sounding music, but it has some beeps and boops that are that piqued my speakers, sort of like what happened when I was playing Hyper Light Drifter a couple of weeks ago. They were piquing my speakers at higher than what it was supposed to have the set thing to do, which is troublesome when I'm trying to play it and also listen to something else, which I often do that with games. So as DSiWare and Wii U things, I can kind of forgive those because those you're expected to just modulate the volume with the console or the TV.
Mm-hmm.
Having settings or at least a like controls thing would be nice, even if the controls are very simple. There's also no like explanatory text of what you're doing. It does give you a time record, so you can theoretically time attack it. That's the main kind of thing there is, I guess. But I found the best way to survive is to take it relatively slow and steady, because you do not have a big vision range due to the darkness. Although when you collect a thing, it does get brighter in that area and you light up for a while. So yeah, you don't have a whole lot. If you go fast, because of the way the thrust works, there is some, but not a lot of gravity. You will drift downwards. So usually I was like, when possible, within 45 degrees on either side of facing straight up. And generally feathering thrust, like I would kind of boost toward a thing and then feather thrust away from it. The tank controls screwed me up a couple of times. For the first several missions, it really seems largely like an exercise in making the little niches the things you're trying to collect are in harder and harder to get into, or more like sealed off. But there are actual interesting obstacles later on, possibly in the dark stages. I only know that from what I've seen of meta stuff. Oh, the other thing it needs a setting for is that by default, and I'm still going to call this a lazy port for this, for not including a sound or things control mapping, or for not including a way to turn off the visual filter. It's not like a CRT filter, but it's kind of like that. And I get that it's intentional for the atmosphere of being in dark water and seeing it through a screen that's been lit up by but it's still not pleasant. And I would have liked to at least have the option to turn it off. Yeah, there's not a whole lot to it other than that. You collect stuff and get to the end. At least the first several stages did a pretty good job of kind of guiding you to the area where you'll at least be able to see where your next goal is, without making it feel like you had no choice of where to go. So I don't know where that falls on allowing freedom versus hand-holding for some people. Because I know some people complain about any hints. But I felt like it was a good balance, I thought. There don't seem to be that many music tracks, and they're all similar. They're the kind of haunting, lot of echoey, and then the almost sonar-like beeps. The visual style it's very minimalistic. It's black, and then color gradient from the light. It's striking. It's not that hard to play generally, but it's not that. I mean, maybe it was done slightly less to death 10 years ago. I don't know. Do you guys have any questions?
Not
I think I'm
as
good.
such, no.
Well, I'm not gonna lie. A little bit of my actually being angry at it got taken out if there's a reason for there not being any menus, but I still really wish they'd added one in the porting, especially 10 years later.
Right. I mean, a lazy port is a lazy port.
Uh-huh. How much is it price-wise?
It clocks in at $2.99, $3.
At that, if the idea, yeah, that's not too much for it. If the theme and the idea of
You can also get
lunar
this
lander
on,
underwater. Oh, you do also have, by default, I think you have 3 hits. It might only be 2, but you seem to regain a hit when you pick up one of the Gaias or orbs or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure because the only way you can tell is how red it flashes when you bump into something, whether you have 1 or no lives left, whether you have like 1. I think it's 3. Whether you have 1, 2, or no more hits left. Like you flash. Oh, there is also voice. It kind of gets swallowed into the background music, but all they do is like say, "All right, let's go." And like when you get one of the things, they say like "nice," and if you bump a wall, they say like "slow down" or "watch out" or something. Honestly, I could barely even tell what they were saying, and it took me quite a while to realize that it was in fact definitely a voice clip and not just like a sound effect. Which was the only thing. That and the quality of the lighting effects were the only things that made me sure that this was a relatively recent game. Because otherwise, this could be pretty retro. I think if it was on the DSi, I think the DSi and where it did have like instruction docs that this I don't think you get with. But I could just be thinking of the 3DS. So yeah, for $3, it's fine if the game appeals to you at all. It's not like a waste. I'm not sure that on the PC is the best way to do it, especially with the lack of control over of the game. I mean, you can use Windows, whatever, but you can't like change sound effects or voice relative to the background music. And also, Petty was unable to adjust the size, which, again, I guess that makes a little more sense with the pedigree of it. But would have been nice if they'd included some way to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it's not bad. If it was much more than $3, I would probably say it's not worth it. But for $3, it might be worth trying out if you're into slightly tricky maneuvering gameplay. And I think that's about all I got.
All right. So, yeah, that'll about do it for Abyss here. Be sure to tune in after the break as we review content warnings.